Hello, everybody. Welcome to this session about the next generation Linux. My name is Stefan Behlert, and I'm working for the product management in the SUSE Linux Enterprise area. So I will guide you to today's session, and we will talk a little bit about the present and where the journey leads with the next generation. Be aware, as with all of these looks into the future, things may change during the next months. But this is the best we currently know about how it will look like. So stay with us and enjoy the journey we are going towards. Let's stay first at the present and where we are coming from, because there we have the most knowledge. We have currently two pillars in SUSE. One is the Enterprise Linux with its SUSE Linux Enterprise family, where you have a variety of products ranging from desktop to server products, extensions all over the places for specific use cases and scenarios, and where you have also management tools to handle all of that. On top of that, the Kubernetes lines and the tools they are provided by SUSE Ranger enable you into a modern world to do your workloads and everything that you require. All of that available in a wide variety of infrastructure environments, from the more traditional data center to the more modern cloud, from branch servers of retail companies to the edge on the telco and the energy side, from developers to operation. All of that supported and with services from SUSE that is world class and among the best that is out there. Let's do a short recap of the various code bases. 2009, we had SLE 11, where you had monolithic enterprise and all generic purpose operating system. Not much granularity there, not much adaptability. So in 2014, when we had seen a lot of improvements of innovation coming into the applications, we also did, for the first time ever, innovation outside of the operating system. We added modules that provide additional content on top of the monolithic operating system. This was the first innovation that happens outside of application and the software tools that come inside of the distributions. And a variety of people and distributions have looked at that, adapted it, enhanced it, changed it, put it to their needs. And in 2018, we also adapted our concept there and improved it. We went from just having additional modules into modularizing the product itself, having more modules and forming the products out of that. All of that as a step towards the far-fetched future when the OS will be simply invisible, when not the OS is what has the main focus, but the workloads, your workloads that you're running. Because in the end, the workloads are what matters most to you. The next step in that line will be coming in 2023 with our next generation, which we codenamed ALP currently, where you will see a even broader and even more concentrated and more focused look at the workloads rather than the generic OS. All of the previous distributions that you see here of the code bases were very much impregnated, very much, formed by the Unix world and the Unix style. The next generation will deviate to some degree from that to go towards the modern world that we expect to see very soon in the operating and in the software business itself. Nevertheless, we know migration from one code stream to the next, from one system to the next takes time. So be aware we will not change any commitments that we had to the old code streams. They are still around for quite a few years. And the 7 service packs of SLE 15, where quite a bunch are still outstanding, will give you a solid base to plan your migration and to plan the next steps. But if you now look at the next generation, then what is forming the next generation? Well, we talked to a lot of customers, to a lot of prospects and partners. We talked to people from all over the places, being busy in different verticals, and we listened and we learned. A common denominator is, of course, that everything has shifted from the past and to the expectations of the OS. It's only the most, significant shift, but it's just one of many. Customers in the past bought off-the-shelf products. They still want that. But compared to what in the past was only a small customization being done, it's now the rule. It happens everywhere. And customization is more often the core of what people do than the generic OS itself. On-premise or off-premise? Is it cloud? Is it bare metal? All of that is in most cases the same. It happens in the same company, in the same entity that you have on-premises and off-premise, that you migrate from one to the other, sometimes also from off-prem back to on-prem or back. It's a side-by-side, not a one or the other in a lot of cases. At the same time, the expectation how long something is viable, how long it's supported, how long is it running has shifted. In the past 10 to 15 years was common. Meanwhile, it's 20, 25 years that systems are running, that support for some application is expected to be so long. Not for everything, but for the workloads that some running, while other things can move faster and more regularly forward. Controlling, managing the tools environments, the workload runtime environments, the costs for it has become a key. And with that, also the expectation of managing layers, of managing tools have shifted, have moved, have grown and increased. And while modules are good, the granularity is not at everybody's liking. And a switch there in the granularity of the offerings itself is something that is asked for and is needed. Of course, modules are not something that will solve everything. The need for slow and fast renewals is still there, independent if you have modules or not. And you will always have to make compromises. But you can, of course, embrace it and include it into the offerings that exist, into the solutions. And if you think of solutions rather than generic OS products, you suddenly have a complete different view. So what does this mean? Where does it lead us to? Let's talk a little bit about ALP, our adaptable Linux platform, and where we want to strive to be. So we said we had one Linux OS family coming from a common code base with several products. We want to switch the focus here away from the common OS, from the generic products, to a workload, to an application-centric view. We took a very old concept up and we decided to go with that. We will split. We will split into a kernel and a hardware abstraction layer. and into an application layer where the workload runtime environments are running. This allows to separate the various needs, to also separate the stuff that exists. And it also allows to run workload runtime environments that are not from SUSE, that maybe are specialized for a vertical, or that are simply coming from another vendor, from another distribution out there. Of course, we still think that the SUSE workload runtime environment is best, but we want to give you flexibility. So the Outcode Base, there will still be some kind of common code base. It will look a little bit different than it's nowadays doing. Will provide not just the host OS, where everything is based on, but also provides the workload runtime environments. That could be a container, that could be a virtual machine. You might want to run a virtual machine containing a SLE15 environment on top of the host OS. You might want to run some special database related workload. You might want to run your custom project, your custom created stuff, or you might want to run some SUSE provided solution. All of that possible from one code base. Separation and compartmentalization will allow us here to be more flexible, to exchange stuff easily without breaking everything, to put together what you need and not just what is there. But how will it look concrete? When can I put my hands on? Let's have a look at the timeline. After a lot of talks in the last few months and analyzing what we got on input, we have started with prototyping. You will see the first usable prototypes out in fall of this year. And we will continue based on that, what we put out together with you, of your feedback, with your input, with your visions, your requests, and enhance and iteratively improve the prototypes that exist. Throughout the year and the following, we will continue to finalize, to polish what we have, and in the end, have a first release of a solution in the fall next year. We want to do that together with you. But how will it look like? What will be the key points? Well, we talked already about the compartmentalization, the next step of the modularization, when we will have more and less at the same time. Of course, nobody wants more repositories. We also don't want that. But we want to be able to provide you with a better granularity, with having the choice of doing one or the other in a specific part of the system that you set up. Service packs are a good way of identifying bundles of packages of software applications, of deciding where to start, a good way of doing a first initial installation. But service packs also have the psychological effect of an upgrade experience. You're switching products, is what we heard in some cases, even if it's just a service pack. Nevertheless, having something where you can set up, where you can start off, is a value that all of our customers wanted. So we will switch there a little bit. We will change the nature of the setup points, make it easy to identify that set, that bunch of deliverables that are there, of packages. It will be a marker, not an entire new product. It will be an update experience rather than an upgrade experience, allowing you to set up at one point of doing your initial installation. Of course, you can nowadays still get all the images that we have for on-prem, for bare metal, off-prem, in the public clouds. We want to have the same deliverables still being available everywhere where you run your workload, so that you really can easily switch and not have to think about what has changed from one media, from one channel to the next one. We want to be easy to install, to deploy. We want it to be easy to configure. But therefore, we will look into how we can adapt the setup that we have, where we can look at the differentiations we have. Do we need that? So standardization is the key. We want let's say every distribution has its own standard, and we want to follow what upstream has on practices, where to install stuff, how to set up things by default. But of course, not everything upstream does is always the best for everybody. So we want to deviate where it matters to you, where it brings you additional value. We want to go our own way, where it's really useful, and not just to do our own stuff, but to bring value to you and to us. I said easy of configuration of deliverable. That's not just the standardization, but it also means that we want the systems to be manageable by default, by being integrated from the beginning, and the thinking of how to do it, how to manage the system, how to install, how to configure it, and not have it just like an afterthought on top of it. All integrated and available as one working together piece of picture. Not all of the deliverables will be supported by default. Let's be frank on that. But support will be available at things that you need it when you need it. And of course, if it makes sense. So therefore, we are looking into the various parts. We are looking into the network system, the hypervisors, all over the places. What security framework is the best for the use case that exists out there? And the answer is not necessarily always a one answer, but several, depending on the use case. We are looking into the variety of choices that exist out there. One of the most often question I heard was, which kernel versions are you using? Well, as usual, we want to be as up to date as possible with things like that. So some of that stuff will be decided rather late. The kernel is the most prominent example for that, because we need to be as up to date as possible, but also be as stable and as bug free as possible, which requires quite some time. On the architecture level set, the most heavy change will be on the x86-64 side. We are currently planning with version 3 here, which is a big step forward and will enable newer parts of the CPUs, allow us to be more performant, faster than we were ever. Of course, version 3 is a daring move, but when the ALP comes out, the CPUs supporting it will be already on the market for 7+ years. So we think it's a good one. But important is, what are your requirements? What are your wishes? We are happy to hear those, and we want to listen to those. If you look how we had built the enterprise products in the past, there were several sources where we took things from. Tumbleweed, upstream projects, our own internal build service, our own deliverables, our own patches. It was a give and take. We did not just take stuff out, we also borrowed things back. We helped upstream projects. We fixed things. We innovated in a lot of projects. And all of that went through our internal processes into this Outcode Base. And from there into the content delivery network, where the images for the betas, for the RCs, and the final products fell out. In the future, this will change. We want to be more open. And the next generation of Linux is therefore completely developed in the open. You will find the images, the prototypes already in the OpenSUSE build service. It's already there. The repositories exist. But as I said earlier, keep in mind, the really useful prototype will come in fall. So if you want to be an early adapter, have a look at that. We intend to work much more closely with you outside. We want to give you an inside glance. You will see the builds and what we do much earlier than you ever got access to it before. Yes, of course, there will be some caveats, some NDA embargoed stuff, which we cannot do completely in the open, but we try as much as possible. And we think everybody will profit from it, because doing things in the open is what open source is about. And why not do it for an enterprise distribution? So get involved, have a look. Instead of just waiting until the final product comes out, you can influence and participate in creating and shaping it. The next generation that is developed completely in the open will allow you to adapt it before it gets final to your needs and your wishes. Not everything is possible, of course, but a lot of things can be moved into the right direction. If you're interested in specific applications, in versions, have a look at current Tumbleweed. This is a good start, because if an application is not present there, then it's currently unlikely to be seen in the Adaptable Linux platform. Which might mean that if you need something, you should speak up to us, that you should maybe get involved. Yes, the first development project is out there. You can look at it. It's for the very early adapters. We are improving that every week, every day, and it's getting better and better. But I expect that for some of you, it's best to look at it in fall. For some, it might be useful to already look at it, especially if they want to get involved. How can I give feedback? At the time of this recordings, I have still to say the feedback channels are to come. I hope that when you see it, you will already have received information where to get it, the feedback channels, where to get the documentation for the first deliveries, and where you can give feedback. We will provide that information through the usual channels. As I said, at the time of this recording, I don't have an URL for you, unfortunately. Well, I said fall 23. Is this the end? No, we are looking beyond 23, to be honest with Al. Where do we want to be there? What do we want a system look like in 5 years, in 10 years? Data driven, easy of consumption. All of these are keywords that we are looking already into, and where we prepare the alt platform to go into that world. We want it to be self-healing, self-tuning, and self-update. And of course, self-explaining, because nobody likes it if he has to look through several hundred pages of manuals. We want it to be as much as possible hands-off from the admin, but still under the control of the admin if he wishes. If you don't want to trust automatism, if you don't want to have it self-healing or self-updating. And of course, we want it to be off the shelf, but customized, where you have a lot of the stuff coming from the regular channels, and where you also have the option to customize it before you download. All of that is far-fetched, is a look beyond 23. Don't get me wrong. But the alt platform will be the step towards it, where we separate the hardware and the host from the workloads, where the focus is on the workload environments, where we adjust the lifecycle already now. The development in the open will help us to go where you need to be, not where we want to be. We have a rough direction given. You have seen a rough glance on it. You can have a more clear picture how it will look like in the build service with the early images, and in Q3 with better prototyping, with more news and better images for your needs. And we hope that when in fall 23 we come out with something for the usage in production, that it's what you need. And we are very confident that this will be the case. We want to go that journey with you. We don't want to go it alone. So we invite you to join us. We invite you to work with us. We invite you to participate. That could be with feedback, that could be with hints, that could be with wishes. We are open on that. And with that, thank you for listening. I hope you see where we want to go. If you expected to hear version numbers, I'm sorry for that. You know, version numbers are not what drives the world. The features and the look and feel it is. Enjoy SUSE conference, and hopefully we will see us soon in real. Thank you very much, and thanks for listening.